Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can see me over the lectern. I went the flats today after dinner last night. Thought that was a safer option, and hopefully you can see me. As Paul said, I work at the Department of Agriculture and Water Resources for another week. We could be called something completely different next week, but we'll go with that for this morning. And I work in the plant exports branch. And my talk today, it might be a little dry, and I apologise for that, but this really is the practicalities of what to do once you're going to export your commodity, your vegetables. You need to have a registered establishment and you need to have your product inspected. So I'm going to take you through the steps, the forms, the fees, all the good government stuff about how you make that happen. So, export registered establishments, what are they and how do you become one? I'm sure it's a term most of you have heard bandied about, EREs, REs, establishments. Now, it's important to know that we use that term for all establishments that export, so whether that's dairy, egg, fish, fruit, veg, grain, the lot. It's a term we use for everything, and the requirements are very similar for all commodities. So if you're going to export your commodity, it needs to be inspected, and it must be inspected in a registered establishment. Now, you're very lucky. Fresh fruit and vegetables, including mushrooms and sprouts, are prescribed goods in our legislation. So that means there's no ifs, maybes, I'm not sure. You absolutely have to have your goods inspected by an authorised officer. You have to have a phytosanitary certificate issued, and the department does that, and you have to have your inspection take place in a registered establishment. Now, that doesn't mean your establishment has to be an RE. You can use somebody else's establishment if you'd like to take your produce there. And if you work with your grower association, they'll be able to help you find an RE that can help you do that. But if you're going to export quite a lot of produce or you've got a big establishment, you might like to look at how your establishment can become registered. Now, I highly encourage you, I saw Darryl put up on his presentation MyCore. So it's the Manual of Importing Country Requirements, and I highly encourage you to have a look at MyCore, and it'll set out the importing country requirements for a range of commodities. Again, everything from dairy, meat, eggs, fish, horticulture and grain. And if you go to our website, agriculture.gov.au, and type in MyCore, you can get to that and you get a login and you can search, and it's really done the hard yards for you. You can type in the commodity you're looking to export and it'll tell you what the importing country requirement is for that. So once you've looked at that, you know what the importing country wants and you'd like to set up your establishment as a registered establishment, we need you to fill in a form. Of course we do, we're government, but it is online and it's called the EX26. Very sexy, I know. It's got a very nice name, Application for Registration or Notification to the Secretary of Change of Details of an Establishment. That's the link there, that'll take you straight to the form. There's an application fee of $600. Now, we require that form to be filled in by your business manager or your company secretary or someone within your establishment who has the responsibility for managing or controlling the goods and the establishment. We require that person to be a fit and proper person, so we ask for things like 100 points of ID, national police check, make sure you've never been taken to court or gone to jail for things like fraud or not following legislation. We don't really care about things like speeding tickets and DUIs. We know people have lives, these things happen, but we're looking for a pattern that shows you're going to be a fit and proper person to control an establishment where goods are going to be exported. We also look to make sure you don't owe us any money, because if you owe us any money, you're not really going to pay all the fees we need you to. So that's another check that we do. We ask you, when you submit that form, to give us some plans and specifications of your establishment. What does it look like? How many rooms have you got? Do you have the appropriate equipment for processing, inspecting, holding, chilling, treating the goods, whatever you're going to be doing at that establishment? And do you have a good system of record keeping in place? One of the most important things about setting up a registered establishment is hygiene. And I apologise that these links are quite long and they're probably not catchy enough to write down. But this is volume 7 of our Plant Exports Operation Manual. And this includes the Hygiene Checklist, and it sets out the hygiene standards for your establishment and the sources of infestation that we're worried about. So I hope someone can share my slides afterwards so that you don't have to frantically write these ones down. So once you've sent in your application, you've paid your $600, we've decided you're a fit and proper person and you don't owe us any money. It takes us about 2 weeks to review that, and we'll get back to you to let you know that we've approved your application. We'll then want to come out and inspect your establishment. Now, we try to do that within 3 to 5 days of you letting us know that you'd like us to come out and do that, so you want to take the next step. And we'll charge you for coming out and doing that inspection. Our standard fee is $36 per 15 minutes. And I can't really give you an exact figure on how long that inspection takes because it really depends on the size of your establishment. It could take half a day, it could take 3 days. It really depends on what we're looking at. But what we go out there to look at is to check that you've got those appropriate hygiene and necessary measures there to produce the goods, that you've got documented hygiene, pest control and waste programs, and that the facilities you're looking to register really do meet the purpose for preparing, handling, storing, treating, inspecting the product for export. Once you've passed that inspection, we'll come back to the office. We'll take between 10 and 20 business days to finalise the paperwork, get the results of the inspection, and once that's approved, you'll get a certificate of registration and an establishment number. Once you are a registered establishment, there's an annual levy that needs to be paid, and this really depends on what you're doing with your establishment. If you're exporting to non-protocol markets, so protocol markets in the horticulture tend to be more the fruit, so we've got citrus, cherry, grape, mango, pome fruit, but we do have cucurbit and chili as well, and root vegetables. So if you are going to those protocol markets, the annual levy is $6,000. If you're not, if you're a simple establishment and you're looking at non-protocol markets, the annual levy is $3,000. However, we do have a discounted rate for an establishment that's a grower exporter. So this is a small horticultural establishment that is only exporting your own product. So you're not bringing in product from anyone else. You can apply, and I'll show you on the next slide the link for the application form. You can apply to be recognised as a grower exporter, and your annual levy will only be $600. So to be eligible for that, you have to meet all of the other requirements that we talked about for registered establishments, and you have to only do your own produce. You must also not occupy any other registered establishment within the financial year, and you must ensure the total tonnage that you produce and prepare for export doesn't exceed the limit, in the table up there. So you can have a look down and see where you might fit in there. So if you are under those limits and you do meet those requirements, I highly recommend click onto that website and apply for the reduced levy, so $600 rather than a potential $3,000 or $6,000. So that's registered establishments. Now, the second part of that export puzzle was once you've got your establishment, your goods need to be inspected, and they must be inspected by a person authorised by the department to do the inspection. And up until about 4 years ago, those had to be a department officer. We've now implemented what we call the authorised officer model, and we now have 3 different types of authorised officers that can inspect goods, and this includes for protocol markets. We've done some market access negotiations, and those protocol markets are now happy to accept external authorised officers doing the inspections. So our 3 different types of authorised officers are department staff. You can absolutely still fill in the form and book a department officer to come out and do the inspection for you. We have authorised officers, or AOs, who are company employees that are linked to specific registered establishments. And we also have third-party AOs. So this is sort of like your floating consultant. It's their business to be an inspector, and they will make themselves available to industry, and you can just book them as you would book any other provider to come to your establishment and provide a service. If you'd like to use a department AO, we ask you to submit a request for inspection appointment form, and we'll contact you. Our fee is going up as of the 1st of December. It is now $75 per 15 minutes for that inspection, and that does not include overtime. So if you get someone out Monday to Friday, 6:30 to 6:30, $75 for 15 minutes. If you'd like someone to come out at 3 a.m. to inspect something before a 6 a.m. flight, you're going to be paying some overtime there, and that's always charged a minimum fee of 30 minutes, and depending on the type of inspection, it's about $15 to $20 per 15 minutes on top of the $75 per 15-minute fee. So yes, some good numbers there to take note of as we move through. If you don't want to use a department officer and you think, maybe we could have an AO on our farm, maybe we'd like an AO in our establishment, we're big enough, we think we can give this a go. There's a few fees, again, involved in that because we are cost recovered and we need to train you and assess you to do those inspections on our behalf. Now, this is one of the big sells with our trading partners in allowing external authorised officers to conduct these inspections, is that the training and assessment is conducted by departmental officers. So you may be aware that New Zealand uses external authorised officers as well. They have outsourced the training and assessment to an RTO, to an educational institution, and that has made some trading partners concerned. They feel that they've lost some control there. We've retained it in-house. We think that's really important. It provides a good message to our trading partners that's important enough. Everybody who is assessed by a department officer. So I will run you through on the next slide the different steps and where these fees come into being. So if you're interested in becoming an external AO, there's an application form. We again ask you to provide those 100 points of ID and a fit and proper person test, just to make sure we are giving you Commonwealth responsibility. When you're conducting an inspection, you are effectively a Commonwealth worker. So it's really important for us that we select the right person. You don't need to be an Australian citizen, you just need to be able to have a national police check. So you submit your application form, there's a $250 fee that comes with that. Once we've approved your application, we provide you access to some online e-learning for the job functions that you've selected. So if you say, I'd like to do inspection of protocol and non-protocol horticulture and in-transit cold treatment, those are your job functions, we'll provide you with a link and you go on, you do some online learning. Once you've done that and you say, right, I'm ready for the next step, we have facilitated face-to-face training. For protocol markets, that is mandatory, and you must attend that training before we do the assessment. For non-protocol markets, it's not mandatory at all, but it is included in your $1,750 fee, so we highly recommend that you take us up on that and participate in the training. Now for that $1,750, you get 5 job functions. You don't have to do them all at once. You can do 2 now, 6 months later decide you want to do another 2, 6 months later pick up the last one. That's all included in that $1,750 fee, and that includes the training and assessment. Once you've done your training, you've done your assessment, we decide whether you're competent or not competent. It's really important not to push people through this process. You might have people working on your establishment, you think, they've been working here for 10 years, I don't need to send them to the training, just get them to do the test. If they fail, it's going to cost you $2,000 for us to come out and redo that training and assessment for them. So it is expensive to fail because we then have to put you back into the mix. We have to send out officers again. We come to you, we come to your establishment to do that assessment. So we do ask you to think about the candidate, encourage them to do the training so that they've got the best chance possible to pass the assessment. Once you have been found competent, we send you what's called a deed of obligations. And this is basically the piece of paper that says, hand on my heart, I'll do my job properly. I know I'm going to be treated like a Commonwealth officer. You're giving me these responsibilities. I promise to do them properly. I promise not to be swayed by my boss. When I'm doing the inspection, I've got my AO hat on. So you sign that, send it back to us, and then we issue you an instrument of appointment. There's again a $250 fee there because this is the legal instrument that gives you the power to do the inspection on our behalf. And that appointment lasts for 2 years. So you're able to do that inspection for 2 years. Now over those 2 years, we will come back out and we will audit you once every 12 months. And again, this is another step to verify that you are continuing to be competent, that you're doing those inspections properly. It gives us the confidence that you're doing it, and then if you want reappointment, we're happy to reappoint you. But it also gives our trading partners the confidence that the people out there doing the work without a Commonwealth officer standing next to them, watching them do it, make sure that they are doing it properly. And this is one of the first questions. We've had a number of delegations come out. The first question, how do you know they're not being bribed? How do you know that they're confident and competent in their job? And one of the things we point to, in addition to our training, is our audit and verification. So we'll come out and we'll see you once every 12 months. If you're not doing the right thing, purposely not doing the right thing, we'll come out and look at you a lot quicker, and we'll look at you more often. But if you're doing the right thing, once every 12 months, that's the only time you'll see us. Now, you do need to pay for that audit at our standard fee of $36 per 15 minutes. But you only have to do that once every 12 months. Now, Minister Joyce in March this year announced a package under the Package for Assistance for Small Exporters to help the horticulture industry address those costs associated, so those costs that I've talked about with becoming an AO. So he's made some funding available, and it's up to $2,000 per person. So those fees I talked about, the $250 application fee, we still need you to pay that, because that's your application fee to say, yes, this is my police check, here's my 100 points of ID, and here's the fee to assess your application. But once that's been accepted, the government will cover the $1,750 fee for training assessment and your $250 appointment fee. So this funding is available until June next year. So I certainly encourage you, if you are looking to become an AO yourself, or you've got people on your establishment or property or company that you think would make a good AO and be good for your business, get in the next 12 months while this funding is still available. I will say, in case anyone asks, if you fail, we're not going to pay for you twice. So please go to the training. It's not mandatory, but do the training. It's very important, and that's how we can help you really get that flexibility in your business. If you've got your own AO, you can do an inspection at 4 a.m. You can do an inspection at 11 p.m. We're not going to tell you have to have your own AOs, but really look at the costs. Is it good for your business? Will this flexibility help you? Can you be more responsive to your operating requirements and to your export requirements? Okay. One last thing I want to point out is the Exporter's Guide. This is available on our website, and it's just recently been updated. And it's called the Exporting Plants and Plant Products, a step-by-step guide for Australian exporters. That's the link where you can find that. It's a PDF document, but it's also available on the website as is. And it basically will step you through the other side of what I've talked about today. So identifying whether your goods are prescribed and checking the importing country requirements. It'll take you through registered establishments and preparing your goods and getting them ready for inspection. And then it takes you through the other side of, okay, my goods have been inspected or my goods are ready to inspect. What do I need to give the authorised officer? What does the authorised officer give me? What do you submit to the department to get your export certification? And then the last step of actually getting your goods out of the country. So I highly recommend you have a look at that. There we go. And a couple of useful links to finish up on. Anything about exporting plant products from Australia that I have touched on today is at that top website. So you can find the PDFs, all of the forms I've talked about can all be found following from that address. There's specific information about the Authorised Officer program at the second link, including contact details, all of the forms, and a detailed description of the fees. And the last one is our industry advice notices. Not sure if people are already on the mailing list. I imagine that your grower organisations probably are, but I highly recommend have a look at this website, get yourself on the mailing list, because we use our industry advice notices to communicate things about markets. So when we got market access for nectarines into China, and we knew that our existing AOs could then do those inspections. We send out a notice. When it comes time to register your orchards or blocks for export to specific markets, the call goes out through industry advice notices. Any changes to export conditions, importing country requirements, fees and charges are all sent out through these industry advice notices, which we call IANs, because we love our three-letter acronyms. But I do highly recommend check out those websites, get yourself on the mailing list, and you'll get the up-to-date information about what's happening with market access and our inspections. So thank you very much. I apologise if that was a bit dry, but that really is the step-by-step how to get your goods inspected and out of the country. And thank you for your time.